Recording in progress. All right, it's 7:31, and welcome to our Thursday night Zoom Zits. I want to give a special welcome to a friend of mine, Moshe Starogard, who is there. Hello, Moshe. Moshe wasn't aware that we've been running this since April of 2020, and we missed only one occasion. And Baruch Hashem, look how the group is growing. We're now on 24, 25, 26. Okay, welcome everybody. And we normally have a special guest, but tonight we have as our special guest one of our own, and that is Estelle Zavatsky, who is going to talk to us about Yiddish theater and other things relating to Yiddish. So welcome, Monty. Was machst du, Monty? Monty Kaplan redt tegen der guten Yiddish. Welcome, Norman Mendel. Stephen Adler from Ranana.
Can I switch off because I only speak German?
No. Hank is Litwischer Yiddish. Mehr nicht wie Litwischer Yiddish wollen wir reden. Ne? And Estelle, of course, welcome.
Preguntarle a Stephen, how is Bennett?
She wants to know how is Bennett. Okay, we'll talk.
He lives in Ranana.
Because he's your neighbor, Bennett. He lives in Ranana.
Yeah,
anyway,
he helps me with the gardening.
He helps you with the gardening. And welcome to Dr. Mervyn Druin and his wife. Forgot your name. In London, welcome Uncle Robbie. My Uncle Robbie, who is, as you know, he's in his 99th year. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll have a nice big party over Zoom in the not too distant future to celebrate his 99th. We are now on 30 people on the meeting. Welcome, Les, from Yerushalayim. We are waiting for you. And of course, welcome Jeff Levenstein and Stan Weinstein and George and Selwyn, Sheila and Arnold. Oh, that's a good name. And then my partner, Arnold Orkin and Jeff Allen and everybody else, Joel Druin. And I want to welcome. So tonight we're going to have a little bit of a Yiddish theme, and I want to welcome David Friedlander, who is one of unsere, and when er singt as a Shane and Hind, because he's just gone off, or is he still there? Are you still there? Yeah, he's there. David, I'm going to spotlight you, and David singt in Yiddish. So, sorry, just one moment. I just want to get everybody, just one moment. Let me sort out the microphones. First of all, I'm going to mute everybody. And then I'm going to unmute David, if I can find him on the list here. Why can't I find him? It's supposed to be in alphabetical sequences. And Baruch Hashem, we've got so many. We're on 33 people. Oh, there it is. Okay. David, I have just unmuted you so we can hear you. And tonight, as I say, Yiddish is our theme. And therefore, we want to start off by starting the evening with Yiddish.
Okay.
Over to you.
Fine. Thank you very much. Can you see me? I can see you.
Yeah, we can see you beautifully and we can hear you beautifully.
All right. Well, that's lovely. Arnold, I'm going to be singing a Yiddish song called Mamala. It's in English and in Yiddish. But just before I do that, once again, I want to thank the Chevra Kadisha for the opportunity of singing to you. And at the same time, thank the Chevra Kadisha for their wonderful Herculean efforts that they have made in getting all the vaccinations done. The staff are wonderful, the nurses are even better. It's too wonderful. I'm very happy being here. And I want to dedicate this song to the Chevra Kadisha, for mothers and everybody. And the song is Mamala. As I watch you light the Shabbos candle, there's a lovely light upon your face. Standing there, whispering your prayer, none can take your place. Mama, Mama, Mother dear, I'll always call you Mother. Hands tired on, and a simple heart that always understands. I remember how you used to comfort me, a little boy of 3 in bygone days. I remember how you on your knee with a kiss you dry my tears. It's you growing old, Mama, oi Mama, sei die wens voor Gott, my Mama, Mama, oi Mama, Lipschach wellich. Heart, a golden heart, wo's du die jedes Kind verstehst. Ich gedenke dich vielleicht mich beruhigen, ein Kind von 3 bloß, ich dachte ich sehr, die du vielleicht mich sitzert an mein Sorg dein Scheuß, mit a kiss abgewischt jedes Tränen. Weißt dein Kopf, wie Schnee weiß Gott, Gott, wie sehst dich mein positives Greien old, Mamele, oi Mamele, sei gewinnt für Gott, Mamele, 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 sei gebencht für Gott,
Thank you, David. Thank you. That was absolutely marvelous. That was great. You can unmute, those of you who would like to unmute. Okay, so, you know.
Thank you, Ronald. God bless you, and God bless Rabbi Fox, and the whole of the Hebrew Kadisha. That's all I can say. I'm grateful to be here, been here 8-9 years, and I just couldn't be happier.
Thank you, David. And David singing from his room at Sandringham Gardens on the 3rd floor. So not only is everybody here hearing him sing, but all of his neighbors can hear him sing as well.
Well
Thank
done.
you, David.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. I'm very grateful.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Humbled, and I'm very grateful.
All right. So now we always have an outside guest, and sometimes we don't realize how much talent we've got inside. We've got it right with us. And of course, we have our beautiful newsletter that is written by Estelle. And the background of Estelle is that, you know, when we talk about Yiddish and Yiddish theater, when Yiddish theater still existed in Johannesburg, Estelle was one of the actresses on the stage. And so she is very much into Yiddish. And Estelle, I'm going to hand over to you because you can tell more about yourself than I can. I'm going to unmute you. So now we can hear you and we can see you.
A guten Abend. Good evening, meine Freund, my dear friends. Thank you, Arnold, for the opportunity to let us talk some Mameloschen. Yiddish is a language very close to my heart. I'm a first-generation South African from Eastern European parents. Among ourselves, we always spoke in Yiddish. My parents did learn to speak English and even Afrikaans, but that was for commercial use only. Yiddish is so expressive. One doesn't even have to speak the language to understand it. Just a hand gesture, a facial expression, you can say it all. Take the word nu. Depends how you say nu. Nu, nu, nu. With that one little nu, you can actually break a deal. I spoke Yiddish before I spoke English. I knew what the word was for a cucumber in Yiddish. It's an uggeke. I even knew what it was in Afrikaans, a komkommer. But I had to go to primary school to learn what the word was in English. I'm not only going to speak about Yiddish theater, but about the Yiddish culture. There was the Landsmannschafts. These were, call them societies, the Vilna Society, the Grodno Society, the Ponnevischer Society, just to name but a few. And it didn't matter if you were a Litvak, a Polak, everybody became friends here. And what was the purpose of these Landsmannschafts? They tried to bring across friends, family from overseas. They tried to get them over, was the word they would use in Yiddish. And once they got them here, they tried to help them get started. These societies were self-funded. And the only way they could raise a little bit of money was by having concerts and other cultural events. My mother's family and my mother all had beautiful voices. So they were invited to everybody's concerts. The repertoire was only in Yiddish. There was the Yiddish Kulturföderation. That is the Yiddish Cultural Federation. They concentrated on the Yiddish language, culture, and literature. Late Zalman Levy and Nochem Winnick, I don't know if any of you remember those names, were very involved in promoting the organization. And they were also very involved in the Yiddish Volksschule. The Yiddish Volksschule was a nursery school, and in the afternoon they had a program for primary school children, all in Yiddish. I went to the Volksschule for several years because my father was considered a purist. He was a Yiddishist. Now, I think that was in opposition to a Hebraicist, but anyway, I had to go to the Yiddish Volksschule, and I did enjoy it. We had, well, the early days, there was a Yiddish Zeitung, the Yiddish newspaper. It was published by Shmerel Levine and Levi Shalit. Dr. Saletan is a relative of Levi Shalit's, and I believe he speaks Yiddish as beautifully as his uncle. There was even several printing presses that printed in Yiddish and I suppose in Hebrew as well. Among these was the Pacific Press, and Dov Fedler's father also had a Yiddish printing press, but I can't remember the name of it. Back to the Yiddish theater. The Yiddish Volkstheater, the Yiddish Volkstheater, played supporting roles on stage and off for both local productions and overseas artists. There were about 60 or 70 people in this organization, as far as I remember, and everybody seemed to be on the committee. They used to gather up in little groups before the meetings, and then the wealthiest man in the organization usually got the vote. Everyone made a contribution, each to their own skills. Yiddish theater was an outlet for the expression of the times, particularly the early days of the Eastern European immigrants. There was the Jiddische Arbeiterclub, the Jewish Workers' Club. It was in Doornfontein. It was very much socialist leaning. They used to put on musical productions and very often straight plays like the Dibuk, which was, again, socialist leaning. And that went very well until the workers became owners and the socialists turned into capitalists, and that was the end of the Arbeiterclub. Most towns and cities on the Witwatersrand had, with big Jewish communities, had amateur theatre productions. They weren't brilliant. The themes were predictable, but everyone had fun. There were professional actors now, like Sarah Sylvia. She was the doyen of the local Yiddish theatre. There was Lucia Gold, who would commute between Israel and South Africa. And there was Chayla Rosenthal. Chayla Rosenthal was known as the songbird of the Vilna ghetto. She was a Holocaust survivor. She lived in Cape Town. And she was absolutely dynamic, a comedian, a songstress, do straight shows. She was beloved by all Yiddish theatre goers. Well-known Yiddish actors like Morris Schwartz, he made the role of Tevye famous. Mansdorf, Ben-Zion Wittler, who used to sing V'nehmt min a bissel a mazel, and the inimitable Max Perlman with his cheese cutter hat would visit South Africa from time to time, normally during the off-season overseas. Now, they would come here, they would stay at the Whitehall Hotel, and because they came with limited funds, they depended on the South African local talent to supplement and to complement their crew. And here was where the Yiddish Volkstheater would come in. They'd be busy with front of house, selling tickets, backstage, and on stage. The kind of play that they would put on was mostly a 2-act show, kind of Bollywood style, you know, boy meets girl, misunderstandings, and then everybody lived happily ever after. And among the plays they put on was Tevye the Milchika, Ansky's the Dibuk, which translated is Between Two Worlds, operettas like Shulamis, the Rumenische Chasene, the Roman Wedding, complete with the Batchen and the gypsy music. And not to be missed was always Max Perlman's Hotta Jeda Weiberle, I mean, that Hotta Funjetzores. This was all about the problems of a rich old man marrying a young bride, and it never missed a laugh. All these productions would take place at the Technical College, the Library Theatre, and the Zionist Center in the CBD. As kids, we were all schlepped along to these shows, whether we wanted to go or not. In those days, children didn't have rights. Now, if you remember these venues, like me, you're old. Allied to the Yiddish theatre were the Yiddish film festivals. We didn't call it anything so posh. It was a series of black and white films, which were old even when we were children. Every Saturday night for about 6 weeks a year, after Shabbos, the Yiddish speakers would line up at the Alhambra Bioscope for their tickets. The series included Yidel mit dem Fiddle with Molly Picken, A Brivele de Mammon, A Letter to My Mother, Tevye the Milchika, Tevye the Milkman, who became the fiddler, the Dibuk, and my all-time favorite was Catskill's Honeymoon. I believe Selwyn Klaas had, or might still have, copies of these classics in his library. We had at home a collection of Yiddish records by well-known singers like Jan Pearce and Ben-Zion Wittler. Some of the songs were sad. Some of them were old classics like Eufen Pipperchick, Brenta Feirl. They were like nursery rhymes. Then, of course, there were the Yiddish-speaking comedians like Mickey Katz. Mickey Katz created the character of Shepsel Kanarik. Shepsel Kanarik felt that it was his right to support both teams at a football match because he had paid a dollar and he didn't want to take sides. Arnold asked me to talk about my CV in the Yiddish theater. Well, my debut was at age 7 in a 1955 production of The Aranda. The Aranda, I believe, is called a concessionaire, but it didn't matter to us what it was. It was a play that was written by Mendel Tabachnik for the Yiddish Folk School that I spoke about earlier. The whole production was centered around a wedding reception, and I was one of the machatonim. I danced the Sherala, which is the scissors waltz. It was a kind of klezmer minuet. I seemed to attend rehearsals for months on end with Mr. Balakin, all for my 2 minutes of fame. Then in 1970, I played Ilana in Ephraim Kishon's Tiksube, The Marriage License. Nusia Gold was the producer. She was the lead actress, and she was the only professional. The rest of us were all local amateurs. But we performed to full houses and rave reviews in Johannesburg, Benoni, Cape Town, and Durban. The theatre critic Percy Banishik called me as mini-skirted a number as you will find in the month of Sundays. If you've listened, it was about the length of my dress, not about my acting talent. The cast had great fun, and we've remained firm friends even to this day. When Max Perlman joined Nusia Gold in Johannesburg, I took part in a number of their productions, including Der Zayda Gate, Grandpa's Coming. This was a comedy about the love-hate relationship between two machatonim, the cantankerous Michiel Small, fresh off the boat von daheim, and the already assimilated Giveret Yontef. Sadly, Yiddish language productions started becoming too costly for overseas producers, and the audiences in South Africa started shrinking due to immigration and a lack of Yiddish speakers. However, Jewish theme productions remained popular. The late Gertie Averbach put on a number of shows, including What Was and Spielzach with Mrs. Levine. The mock wedding with Solly and the late A.B. Kroc was a resounding success and was brought back several times. In more recent years, Yiddish has been making a comeback. The charismatic Kaylee Joe Levy from Cape Town has been engaging in music song festivals for about 10 years now. I went to see one of her Yiddish productions with Shane Baker. Shane Baker lives in the United States. He's a non-Jewish proponent of Yiddish culture. His Yiddish is unbelievably perfect because he was taught by some of the doyens of Yiddish theater in New York. Romain Greenberg recently entertained us on the Zoom Zits in Yiddish. Yiddish is such an expressive language. We must not let it fade away. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Estelle. And your passion for Yiddish comes through. And I'm sure that some in the audience recognize so many of the things you said, like Monty, you must have recognized quite a lot of things that Estelle said. Am I right? Unmute. Well, Monty.
I didn't mix in those circles. They're a bit foreign to me.
You didn't mix in circles. You
Jiddische
went to
theater.
Sag ich nicht.
Ich habe nicht eingemischt in jiddische Theater. Was kann ich halt sagen?
You noticed
Excellent.
the I, the the.
Please translate. I don't understand English. What Monty says.
That he didn't mix in the theater circles.
Oh,
Where's my uncle? My uncle also must have recognized some of the things. Robbie, did you recognize some of the things that Estelle said?
Yeah. one thing. You had to pay to go and see a show, and you couldn't afford it all the time. That was the problem. Used to go to the standard. The standard crumbs. I'll
Yes.
remember this now. That's another problem with me. We used to go to a matinee, and
Yes.
that was cheaper, and
Yes.
sit right on top with the gods.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much, Estelle. Was really fascinating, certainly for me. Okay. For those that joined us today, I don't know who Zelda is. Welcome, Zelda. Zelda, welcome. If you can hear me.
I can hear you.
We can see you. Welcome. And welcome. It's not Josilovitz, is it?
No, Levine.
Levine. Oh, hello. Welcome, Zelda.
Thank
And welcome,
you.
Moshe, and welcome so many others that I see today for the first time. And as I say, one of the things we've been going since April of 2020, and we do this as a consolation for not having the live shuls and the live droshes, but it's for us to usher in the Shabbos atmosphere, and we couldn't have a Shabbos atmosphere without a drosha. And since we've got the best drosha given in town, I hand over to him now.
Definitely not the best drosha giver in town, but thank you for that introduction. So firstly, a very big thank you to Estelle for that beautiful presentation. And now we all realize that not only are you a brilliant editor of our newsletter, a brilliant, and what's the female of author? Is it an authoress? Or do we just say author? A brilliant writer, and also an orator and an actress. So a lady of many, many talents. And we are very privileged to have you as part of our shul, our community. And we thank you very much, Estelle. Yes, you were going to say a female author is an authoress, right?
Yes, today we talk of author. We talk of actor, not actress. It's
Right.
all you need. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's the Yiddish for an actor?
An acteur. And a Yiddish for a female is an actrice.
Okay. Learned my
You've learned your Yiddish tonight.
my Yiddish word for the day. But whenever people talk about Yiddish, of course, I always remember Shabsi. Shabsi loved Yiddish, and he actually went with Arnold onto a show on Chai FM where they spoke Yiddish for the hour, and that was a huge highlight in the last few years of Shabsi's life. He used to brag about that interview, that hour that he was on Chai FM. So thank you, Arnold, for giving that to him. And two of the things that he used to say to me was, two of his favorite expressions was, lost saru. Just leave it alone. Don't get involved. Okay, so that was the one thing. And he used to also say, gay weiter. Gay weiter, Rabbi. Don't try a cup, gay weiter. Anyway,
move on. It means move on.
Move on. Let's move on. Yeah. Okay, so in our parsha, we have Bnei Yisrael are about to enter Eretz Yisrael on the east side of the Jordan, and the two tribes of Reuben and Gad, they request of Moshe Rabbeinu the land to the east of the Jordan. They prefer to settle there rather than to go into the land of Israel and to settle in the land of Israel. Very interestingly enough, though, they took full responsibility. It wasn't like they were avoiding fighting, engaging in the war with the people against the inhabitants of Israel. They were fully prepared to go into Israel, to fight with the people and stay with them for a period of 7 years in the land before settling on the east side of the Jordan. Yet they made one small mistake in their request to Moshe. They said, Moshe, please can we have the land to the east of the Jordan so that we can build cities for our cattle and, pens for our cattle, grazing land for our cattle, and cities for our children. So Moshe Rabbeinu pointed out to them that by putting it in this particular order, okay, pens for our cattle and cities for our children, they were prioritizing their children, the cattle over their children, which was not a good thing to do. So they had their priorities slightly wrong. They put their wealth before their family, okay? And that's something that we need to get right in life, and that is priorities. As we are in the middle of the 3 weeks at the moment, we know we focus on what were the reasons for the destructions of the temples. And we know the very famous reason that the rabbis tell us is sinat chinam, was, enmity, hatred between one another. But it's very interesting, the very same sage, Rabbi Yochanan ben Torsa, who gives that as one of the reasons, okay, interpersonal hatred, he says there was another factor, and people don't know this one. Everybody knows about sinat chinam, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Torsa said that there was another major factor that led to the destructions of the temples. Not only was it sinat chinam, not only was it hatred of one another, but it was ahavat mammon, the love of money. Okay, he says that in 2 places. He says hatred of one another and love of money. In other words, what he is telling us is that the people at the time, unfortunately, had sunk to a level where they had prioritized their wealth, their money. They loved their money, but they disliked their fellow man. They had their priorities completely opposite of what they should be. Because obviously the Torah tells us to love our fellow man. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love our fellow man. And when it comes to our relationship with money, that's very interesting. Okay, our relationship with money is very interesting. Of course, we all have a natural desire for money, but when it becomes an overwhelming love, then it can replace and displace everything else which is important, and relegate the important things down somewhere below. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Torsa says, get your priorities right. The people of the time made a big mistake. They put money before everything else. Money before family. Money before Yiddishkeit. Money before mitzvahs. And that's a very dangerous thing. Money is extremely important. Money enables us to live. Money enables us to do mitzvahs. We have to, pray. We pray for money many times a day, many times a month. Rosh Hashanah, so we know that money is important, but to have an overwhelming love for money, so much so that it, overrides and supersedes our love for other things, then we have our priorities wrong, and we need to realign our priorities. And during the 3 weeks, that is something that we can work on, just to realize, and to assess what is really important in our lives. And the Torah gives us the guidelines for what is important and what's less important, and what is so important. The most important thing the Torah tells us is Torah, mitzvahs, and relationships. Our relationship with Hashem, our relationship with family, our responsibility to community, and somewhere lower down is our relationship with money. So that's something that we can focus on. I remember I think it was in a Stephen Covey book. Okay, he says, he did an experiment or a little test, and he said to a person, here's a jar. He said to two people, here's a jar, and here is some sand, fine sand, and some rocks. Okay, now fill the jar with the sand and the rocks. So the one person put a lot of sand in first, and then could only fit a few rocks in. It didn't work very well. The other person was clever, and he put the rocks in first, and all the fine sand just, it fell into the jar and fitted into the jar fully. He managed to fit everything in. So Stephen Covey says that the rocks represent the important things in life. We have to have the important things in life in place, fixed and prioritized before anything else. The other stuff we include in our life, it enriches our life, it's fantastic, and it will fit in. But you have to prioritize the important things. Put the rocks in first. Make sure that you've got those fixed in your life. The family, the Hashem, relationships, mitzvahs, put those in. Make sure you do them. Shachrit, Mincha, Mariv, Torah learning, Shiurim, all of those things. Make them set. And that's why the rabbis say that one of the most important things is to set aside times for Torah, not to make it just random random, at any time that we want. Make them fixed, prioritize them. The rest of the things will fit in around that. So that's an idea to work on, and to remember that we need to work on loving our fellow man and taking down that priority of the love of money. Yes, it's a natural thing that people do have a desire and a love for money, but it shouldn't ever take over the more important things in life. Good Shabbos to everyone.
Shekeach, Rabbi. Shekeach, as usual. Great, inspiring drosha. Now, of course, we are so connected, so tied up to our beloved state of Israel. And, oh, sorry, let me remove the spotlight. Okay. We are so tied up to our beloved state of Israel. And so much is going on over there. So much is going on. And was that a l'chaim you just made, Rabbi? And so
I prioritize a whiskey every Thursday night.
All right. And we are so privileged to have our own reporter, Liz Glassman, who bring us the report. And Liz is so committed to this session. I don't know, you didn't start quite from the beginning from us, but I think you've been with us now for well over a year, Liz. And we really appreciate that when you've got other arrangements, you make sure that we have a recording. And the last 2 weeks you couldn't make it, and we had beautiful recordings from you. But I see that today we've got you live and ready to tell us lots about what's going on in that beautiful but crazy country. Over to you, Liz.
Okay, Arnie, thank you so much. And Estelle, I just want to mention, I went to the Yiddish Volksschule, but my priorities were a bit different. I was much more into soccer, so I wasn't so happy there. And I told my parents, I just don't want to, I'd rather play soccer than go. But I spent, I think, about a year there. And, I learned a bit of Yiddish, but I learned more from my grandparents. Anyway, I'll tell you, this week started on a bit of an upsetting note when I was reading in the SA Jewish report that the Durban Film Festival, they banned a filmmaker because he's Israeli and he's born in Israel. And I was really upset about that. But you know what? We have to look at the positive, and there's so much positive. Last week, I mentioned to you guys that we were having this incredible Zoom event in partnership with the Joburg Holocaust Museum, the Bau Museum, Telford, and Wits Alumni. So this was the Zoom. This is about Rebecca and Joseph Bau, who were very close with Oskar Schindler. They're in the movie with Schindler. In fact, if ever you see the movie Schindler's List, the couple that were married were their parents. And what's amazing, if you look at our poster here, you've got Wits alumni. So Wits University was proudly represented there. So those that want to boycott Israel, in South Africa, unfortunately, it's quite sad that it's quite strong in South Africa, but around the world it's not. And on Tuesday, I actually went to see a Holocaust survivor who I heard was born in Hungary. And I heard that his mother, it's a most amazing story, Gladstein, that she was in the prison cell with Chana Shenish, which is unbelievable. Chana Shenish is an icon in Israel. She was born in Hungary, and she came to this British Palestine at that time. And at the age of 17, with the Haganah, she parachuted into then ex-Yugoslavia. And unfortunately, when she was crossing into Hungary, her mission there was to help save Yidden, help save Jews, and fight for the resistance. So the Hungarian, when she crossed over the border, the Hungarian police and the Germans captured her, and they put her in this prison. And when she was together with, his name is Baruch Gladstein, who I went to meet. And in the Jerusalem Post on Tuesday, this is the Tuesday Jerusalem Post, they've got on the front page the most amazing article that parachuting for Chana. And what's happening is that 100 participants are going to be reenacting her parachute, her jump when she went into Yugoslavia. They're coming from Hungary, from Croatia, from Slovenia, from England even, and obviously from Israel. And they are going to recreate her incredible parachute that she did. And it's going to commemorate 100 years of her birth. She was born 100 years ago. And here you have these countries that are so committed, and they're doing it in partnership with Israel in memory of this great icon of ours, Hannah Senich. And this is the picture of Baruch Gladstein's mother, who was actually in the same prison cell as Hannah Senich. And Arnie, I'll send you the link to that interview. It's incredible. And she told Baruch's mother that he must escape. And when she was in the hospital section of that jail, she actually did escape. It's a phenomenal interview. And to think that it was on the same day, it's just, there's nothing that is coincidence. But what's happened in Israel, the Bennett has survived a month, the coalition, it's incredible, but they have survived this month. But I think the limelight this week was something very, very, very unique and very special. We had our beloved 10th President Ruby Rivlin. Yesterday, he handed over to the new 11th President, Isaac Herzog. And I just want to, with your permission, just mention a few words about our really beloved, our very special. He is known as the sub of the nation. Ruby Rivlin arrived at the Beit HaNassi, which is the president's house, as a politician, and he left as a world statesman. It's incredible. People were worried because he followed in the footsteps of Shimon Peres, who was very, very left. He was very involved with the peace process and with labor. Now you had Ruby Rivlin, who was very right. He was from the Likud. He was a Beitar soccer supporter. But he was always, all his life, he was Likud. He was very right. And people were worried, how is he going to be the president? But Ruby Rivlin put the country first, and he put the nation first. And at the 15th annual Herzliya conference, he gave the most incredible speech where he mentioned the 4 tribes of Israel. And what are the 4 tribes? He said the secular, the modern national religious, the Orthodox Haredi, and the Arabs. He said, we are all one people. And it was a groundbreaking talk that he gave. And then later on, he mentioned another tribe, and he said, that's the diaspora Jews. They must also be included. So he was a phenomenal unifier. And he always put the people and the nation first. And he grew into the hearts of all Israelis. It was amazing. His warmth, it just exuded from him. Beit HaNassi, the president's house, which is here in Jerusalem, was open over Sukkot. Even I think, during the COVID. And people, anybody could come in and meet with the president and have a selfie with him. He was always open to everybody and anybody who wanted to come and meet with him over Sukkot Chol Hamoed. When his wife, Nechama, passed away, the whole nation grieved with him. And what's amazing with Ruby Rivlin is that he met with the world leaders. And I'll just show you. Here's a picture of him and Biden. And you see the warmth and you see the chemistry that he had with all world leaders. He met with Macron. He met with all the ambassadors. And in the last week of his presidency, he met with Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who's the German president. And they have such a friendship. And to think, when Israel was reestablishing relations with Germany, Ruby Rivlin actually demonstrated against Israel when he was a student, having relations with Germany. And the last head of state to meet he met him in Yad Vashem, and then he hosted in Beit HaNassi, in the president's son, was Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who's a very close and dear friend of Israel. And what was wonderful to see, and this was really heartwarming, is when he handed over to Isaac Herzog, he mentioned that Isaac Herzog comes from an impeccable family. I mean, it's just that he was born into this role. He's not the greatest orator, Isaac Herzog. He's not the warmest person. but he's genuine, and he comes really from this amazing family. His grandfather was Yitzhak Halevi Herzog, who was the chief rabbi of Ireland, and then he took over the position after Rav Kook. And he was the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi in Mandate, Palestine, and then in the state of Israel. And very beloved. He was a very loved chief rabbi. His father, Chaim Herzog, you all remember, being the ambassador to America, at the UN, and he was the 6th president. And he was in the IDF, also very well known and very beloved as well. But Isaac Herzog's he had two uncles. One was Yaakov Herzog, who was actually a rabbi, and they thought he was going to be also the next chief rabbi. So he was the Israeli ambassador to Canada. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, this is going back many years, there was a 3-part record called the Toynbee debate. So there was Arnold Toynbee, not Arnold Garver, this is Arnold Toynbee, and he actually made a statement. He was a world historian, and he said that the Jewish people are like a fossil. And what the Israelis had done to the Palestinians, this was back in the 60s. He said, what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians is comparable to what the Nazis did to the Jews. And Yaakov Herzog had a debate, an incredible debate that was on a record. I used to have the record. It was three records of the whole debate. He was phenomenal. And he wrote, there was a book called A People That Dwells Alone. This was Yaakov Herzog. Unfortunately, he died at a very young age, but that was his uncle. His other uncle, we all know, is Abba Eban. So Abba Eban was the Israeli statesman. His speeches at the UN are legendary. And what's interesting about Abba Eban is his wife, Susie, was South African. But although he came from an impeccable lineage, Isaac Herzog, when he took the oath of office, he took it on the same Tanakh, Bible, that his father had taken it on. And that was his grandfather's Tanakh, who was a chief rabbi. And also what happened is that when he was voted into office, it was against Miriam Peretz, but he got the highest votes that the people who vote for the president are the members of the Knesset. He got 87 out of the 120. That's the highest number of votes that any presidential candidate has received in Israel. So although he was leader of the labor, and he was leader of the opposition, and he was head of the Jewish agency, very unassuming, but he is the real deal. What's very interesting about Isaac Herzog is that I went to the Great Synagogue where he gave a speech, and he gave a talk about Har HaZeitim, where my beloved mother and grandmother are buried. His family is buried on Har HaZeitim. And he feels very comfortable speaking to religious audiences and to secular audiences. So he bridges this divide. And when he gave his acceptance speech in the Beit HaNasi, he actually quoted Jonathan Sacks, Zichron Bracha. And he said, just as the emblem of the state of Israel is a seven-leaf menorah, and it starts from the stem, he says the president has to look up, and it has to look up to its people. And it's a branch of 7. So you have to look up, and he quoted Jonathan Sacks on this. It was beautiful. And what's going to be very nice with Isaac Herzog is that he said his business is making allies and not enemies. And I just want to show you, this is in today's Jerusalem Post, taking office, and he has pledged that he wants to be the unifier of the state of Israel and its people. So we wish him all the hatzlacha, and may he just be successful, somebody we can all look up to, somebody that will bridge the divide between secular and religious, between all Israelis, Jewish, Christian, Arab, and I think he's the right person for the job. So I just want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. And Arnie, I must just tell you, it's the greatest honor and privilege, really, to be on this Zimzetz. I cannot tell you how I appreciate that I am on here, that I love it. And I think what you all are doing is absolutely phenomenal. So may it just continue from strength to strength.
Thank you, Les. Thank you so much. And always interesting. And what an interesting place Israel is, of course. And you make it even more interesting. Okay. I see that. I think Israel Lerman, do you want to ask a question? Where are you? He sent me a message to say that. What is the question that you want to ask, Israel?
Yeah, I wanted to know about this like virus. Is it like a thing from Hashem or God, or is it a plague or?
Okay, so
you know, that's what I want to ask. Is it?
Okay, there's only one guy that can answer it, and I've just unmuted him.
Okay, it's a very complicated question, Israel, but I think you need to give me a week to research it and get back to you. It's a very deep philosophical question, Israel. It's a beautiful question. It's not a nice question to have to ask, but it's a very deep question. So well done, and maybe next week I can speak about it. Okay.
Right.
And it really is deep. I've looked into it a little bit, but I'd like to research it properly. Okay. Thanks, Israel.
Okay. Good. Rabbi, you've got a week.
Arnie, can I just mention something?
Yes, go for it, Liz.
So also, unfortunately, when just before the Zoom started, I went onto the news sites, and 2 people died in Israel today from COVID. You know, we were in a euphoria that people weren't wearing masks. One of those that died is a 47-year-old who wasn't vaccinated, which is so sad. And the other person was immunocompromised. So everybody who's watching this, and all friends and family, please, we beg you, if you can get vaccinated, you must. It's so important. I heard that the base are doing it. It's something really groundbreaking. Only you can mention it with Aaron Zolberg, who was on our Zoom. But they're having, it was even on Chai FM on the news. But I really would strongly, strongly recommend everybody. I had 2 dentist friends, colleagues, that didn't have the vaccine and they got the virus. So please, it's just, we've been given a gift, and it's a gift from Hashem, really. So if they can answer in some small way, and even if you do get the virus, and my next door neighbor was vaccinated, and he's in his 80s. He was at a bar mitzvah, and unfortunately he's tested positive. But because he had the vaccine, so the symptoms aren't as serious. So please, everybody, be vaccinated.
Okay, so just to plug in the advert that Liz said, the base shul is having a walk-in on Sunday. Walk-in on Sunday, but you've got to be over 50, yeah? Minimum 50 years old. So, and then you can have the vaccine, either the first or the second. All right, 2 more items before we close, and the second last one, we always get cheered up, and I think that we can't get too cheered up today because we are in the 3 weeks. But it's also Erev Shabbos, so we can do a little bit of cheering up. In fact, when we normally play some music, we normally play a video with some music, but the rabbi said it's the 3 weeks, no music, and next week also no music. But we can sing without music, that is allowed. So Jeff, let's have it. Let's have your usual cheering up intro and song, but the actual Kohen Bracha, we are going to leave for, I think that, is he here? I see Ivan Sosnovic is here, but is
I think he's here.
Anthony's here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, Jeff, over to you.
Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. It's so lovely to be with you all again. Les, thanks for everything that you do. And the Zooms, it's absolutely inspiring. And Estelle, what you just said tonight resonates in all our hearts. It's so beautiful. Yiddish is a basis for basically in the last century who we are. We were mentioning songs, and you were mentioning songs, and one of them was a lullaby, in what our Bobbers and Zayders learned from the crib. It was these lullabies and these Yiddish songs that kept the Jewish flame burning. All these songs had a message, very special message, and about who we are, where we're going to, what our lives are about. They were our, what we could call our musical memory. Now, one of these songs is which Estelle mentioned in her speech to us, was a song, it's a lullaby, which speaks about a rabbi teaching little kids near a stove, little children, the Hebrew alphabet. That's a song. La da da da, la da da da, la da da da, la da da. Oifen prefetchik brennt a Feuer und ein Stube ist heiß und der Rebbe lehren kleine Kinder dem Aleph Beis und der Rebbe lehren kleine Kinder dem Aleph Beis. Es ist Kinder. Toira, was sie lernen dort, mit alle froh, noch einmal und tacken noch einmal, mit alle froh. Lern Kinder, lern mich weit, lern dem Aleph Beis. Glücklich ist der Jid, das kennt der Teura und das Aleph Beis. Glücklich ist der Jid, das kennt der Teura und das Aleph Beis. Setzt der Kinder, gedenkt der Teura, was sie lernen dort, so noch einmal und Tag noch einmal, mit alle voll, so noch einmal und Tag noch einmal, mit alle voll. I hope this brings memories back to all of you, everyone here, because we all at one stage have heard this beautiful lullaby, and it brings tears to my eyes every time I hear it. And I hear it being sung, it reminds me of my Bobber and my Zayda, and how much they used to love this melody. Well, it's now.
Jeff, for a pom, your Yiddish is excellent.
Not too good.
I'm sure the rabbi behind you is very proud of that song.
Thank you. Well, in the same part of the world, the very same part of the world, what do we sing on Shabbos when we sing our psalms and Sukkot Zimra? V'harehu b'shuasi, orech yamim asmi'ehu v'harehu b'shuasi. Ay, 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 la, 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 la. La 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 la. הגדול בגבוהי שמך, הגיבור לו הנצח והנורא בנורסיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רבניסו.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Thank you. And all right, we've come to the end, but before we do the end, Joel, how are you doing? It's so nice that, Joel, that you're here and you've got the opportunity to see your brother in London on Thursday nights. Eh? Wait a minute, let me unmute you. Eh? What do you say?
It's absolutely wonderful to see him and his wife here.
Okay, all right, where are they? And there's Dr. Merwin. Dr. Merwin.
I must tell you, I cannot thank you enough. You know, sometimes you find these little Yiddish pearls, and this program with Estelle and with Jeff, I'm telling you, and the Rov and the Les from Israel, it's a gem. I look forward to it every Thursday night, and I can't thank you enough. And Estelle, I saw Max Perlman a number of times when I was growing up in Johannesburg. I remember his one song, Benzin, Petrol, and going to the Zionist, to the hall in the Zionist Federation, the halls at the technical college, where they used to put on these plays in Yiddish. I too spoke Yiddish before I spoke English, and tonight was just an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful to hear. And so my good friend Moshe Starograd, your first time with us. You see, we're just ordinary people telling ordinary stories.
It's beautiful, beautiful. It's very nice. It's very interesting. It's very informative. You know, a lot of information. Beautiful.
Oh, you see, the one thing about Moshe, ich rede Litwischen Yiddish, aber rede Polischer, weil kommt von Warschau. Warschauer, well done. Okay, just before we call Anthony, just before we call Anthony for the bracha, because we gotta get, we're living in such difficult times that we need to have a bracha. We need to have a bracha. Now, are you still spotlighted there? Okay, sorry. There we are. We need to have a bracha, and I hope everybody is well. And Anthony, are we ready for your bracha?
Yeah. Hello, how are you?
Hello, Anthony. You're sideways, but it doesn't matter.
All right, nice to. Okay, I wish everyone a good evening and hope you have a good Shabbos. And the bracha is Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace and happiness. And amen.
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 Thank you.
Amen. Amen. And thanks.
A bracha works no matter what direction you're facing.
It's a little bit skew, but it's not so skew.
Fantastic, Anthony.
As long as the words come from the heart, which I know they do.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Yes. Who's talking?
It's Joel.
Yes,
here.
Joel. Yeah, go for it, Joel.
I want to thank the Chevra Kadisha for making sure that everybody that they're involved with is inoculated fully for the COVID. We've had 2 injections, and the people are absolutely thrilled that we've had that through the Chev, and I want to thank the Chev for caring for us.
Okay. And Bezrat Hashem, we should all be well soon. And we should be back in that beautiful lounge with our regular Shabbos Kiddush. Cheerio, everybody. Have a good Shabbos. And
Thank you, Arnold. Thank you, everyone. Good Shabbos.
we'll see you next.
Thank
We'll see you next Thursday.
Paul, Anthony.
Good Shabbos. Have a good Shabbos.
Thanks, Mukla. Good
Shabbos.
Bye. See you, Joel. Bye.
See you, everybody.
Eric and my parents, thanks for joining us. Eric Stillerman.
Yes, good Shabbos, everybody. Thank you.
Good Shabbos. Good luck for the double Pasha laning.
Thank you, you too.
Difficult. Very difficult.
Yeah. You're right.
And did you see Jeff Levenstein, Eric?
Yeah, I did.
Is he?
Good night, Jeff. Good Shabbos.
Hi, Rolf.
Good Shabbos.
Thanks, Rolf. Have a good
Hi, Shabbos.
evening.
Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you, everyone. What a lovely Zoom. Zoom set. Fantastic. What a treat. Shkaya. Good Shabbos, everyone. Thank you.
Did I say good evening and good Shabbos before? You see, he can unmute it. That's my trouble. I said, don't. You know why I said that to you? Because it might have gone off if you would have fiddled with it. But he can do it. You see. He unmutes. So it's not a problem. That's what I thought.
Mr. Geezer.
It's not tonight, Cyril. It's not tonight, Cyril.
Oh. Well, that one was tonight. I can't switch it off.
So, was it good?
What am I seeing? I thought it would be
Talking
Yiddish.
and just reminiscing.
Yeah.